everyone, welcome back to the Claremont Classic Garage. We're still working away here on this 1945 Ford 2N loader tractor. Up to this point, this thing has definitely been a ton of work, but we're getting there. I originally in this video was going to work on the loader, but I've decided that it's probably easier to work on the loader once the thing is up and running, because we're going to need to, make it go up and down and whatnot. So we're not going to do that now. What we're going to do today is get the steering box sorted out, back on, get the steering linkage sorted out. We'll adjust it later, and get the dash all fitted back on it, and some of the electrical components hung back on it, so we can get this thing wired up and get it back running. Our steering box has a few issues. This is the push rod for the starter contact, which should be over here, which was gone. It's seized. There we go. Wasn't that seized there? We got her freed up already. Well, there's one thing fixed. And this thing here, the rocker, or whatever you want to call it, for the shift interlock, that lets the transmission, that lets it start only if the transmission is in neutral, that's broken. So we're going to have to braze that up. I'll probably braze it back. It's cast. I should see if it's cast iron or cast steel. I'm judging by the way that it's broken that it's cast iron, right? So we'll probably have to braze it up, and then I'll weld a washer around it to reinforce it. And we also would like to see if we can tighten this steering box up at all. It's got quite a bit of play in it. The 2M box is a little different than the 8M box. You can see here, we've got quite a bit of play. There's a shim in there, and there's shims inboard and outboard, right? So we'll have to fiddle around with that and see where it goes. For now, what we're going to do is stand it up, get the top of it off, and we can get at this stuff on the inside and see if there's anything we can do with it. On the top, I can feel just by working it back and forth that the bearings on the shaft are in bad shape. It's got some kind of a homemade arrangement here for the throttle lever. We're just going to cut that out. We'll have to replace all of that. It's going to take a bit of work, but we'll get her fixed up. Now, before we pop the top bit off, we just have to remember that with the thing centered, you can see there both steering arms are in line. That's centered or straight ahead. The key on the steering shaft is pointing at us. I'll grab a steering wheel later and make sure that's the right position, because we want the steering wheel positioned right so it looks centered. But for now, that's the way this is. I will check another one. Okay, let's see if we can get the top of this thing off. Oh, look at that. It's nice and free. There's bearing inserts in here, like a connecting rod bearing. You can buy replacements for. There we go. We'll deal with the top after. First, we're going to deal with the bottom. Okay, and out comes this assembly. Now we're going to flip this thing over and see about fixing that rocker. Okay, I found a piece of 3/16 rod and got this thing kind of jerry-rigged up on it. Now we're going to go ahead and try and braze this thing back together. Hopefully it'll work. Got to make sure it stays lined up is the main thing. And get her hot. I got to almost drip the braze onto it. Just like that. Okay. Now we're going to get cheeky and see if we can bridge it with a washer. Just to give it a little extra strength, you know? So we don't have to worry about it breaking again. There we go. That should do it. Let that cool off a bit. Then we'll dress it down and see how it looks. Well, not the prettiest job, but it works. So we got that freed up. We got that fixed up. Now I got to go ahead, clean this gasket surface off, and we can at least, we'll sit it on the tractor because that's probably just the easiest place to work on it. I've got the steering box just bolted down with just 2 bolts for now, just to hold it in place. Now we got to make sure, remember we had that shift rail sticking, right? So we got to make sure, there's 2, there's reverse, 1, 3, 2, reverse. So we're all set there. We've got that working properly. Good. The shifting on these things is kind of clunky at best, especially when you're leaning over the side like this. So that's all good. Now we're going to lay the steering sectors in there, and we can start fiddling around figuring out how we're going to get some of the play taken out of this thing. There's a couple of ways we could accomplish that. One, we could find some kind of a shim that we could put in here, like a pinion bearing shim or something, if we had something around to push these sector gears closer to center. What's happened is that over time, the face of these gears has worn. The face of the pinion in here is worn. That little pinion gear may have worn. There's just wear on everything. Another thing that we could try to do is get this pinion bearing, this pinion a little further down, because it's a tapered pinion. Increasing the depth of it will serve to basically make it bigger and spread these gears apart, which is probably at the end of it all the easiest way to deal with this, and the way I think I'm going to deal with it. So for now, we're just going to load this stuff back in there and see what we can do with this. That's how that sits in there. And straight ahead, dead center, is when the arms are both parallel to each other. It's hard for us to see that because we can't see through the tractor, but when it's basically pointing at this stud here, the arm, that's when you know you've got it centered. This one could maybe go a little bit more. That maybe is a little too much. There. About there. When we jiggle the pinion down in between them, it'll get them to the right place. The bearing on this is fragged. It'll hardly turn. So we're going to take this baby apart and see what we can find out. There should be a couple of jam nuts under here, and then you can see there's a tapered roller bearing at the top and another one at the bottom. And you set the preload on it by tightening the first nut, then tightening the jam nut. Got the shaft out. The bearings are still in one piece, which is more than I could say for most of the 8N steering boxes I took apart. So we'll get this stuff all cleaned up and have a look at it, see what kind of shape it's in. Okay, so we're going to try some monkey business here. This lower cone, the one that was on there, it was pretty beat up. You can see there it's in bad shape. So I found a decent used one. This one is just fine. We'll use that. The actual roller bearings were good, and the outer races are fine. I've had them in there, pushing with my thumb, putting a little load on them, and they turn nice and free. Everything's good. So what we're going to do when I put it together, I'm going to put this washer in there as a shim. So however thick that is, that'll deepen the pinion into the gear set. Now, before we, and take up a little bit of that slop, I hope. But before we do that, you could see all those years of this being a loader tractor. Look at this step in the top of these teeth. That's the original surface, and that's how much it's worn away. So I've got to get a grinder and dress that down, or else when I deepen this thing, literally just that little tiny spot will be all that's engaging the sector gears. We don't want that. We want a full a full tooth of engagement. So we're going to get the grinder and as carefully as we can grind that away. And I think we'll be okay. Well, there we go. We've got our shim behind the bearing and the inner cone and the roller bearing installed. I've smeared some grease around on that race. We'll get it in and do the same thing. Put the top of it together and see how it feels. So there we go. I got it together. I just took the slop out of it. I didn't really put any preload on it. Just taking the end play out. And that's nice. It's not notchy or anything like that. It's just right. So we're going to drop it down over there and see how it seems. Another thing I'm going to try, there's originally a paper gasket in between there. I'm going to try to forego the paper gasket and just use sealant. And maybe that'll tighten up these bearing shells on the sides here. That's my hope anyway. Okay, so that worked out perfectly. Splendid. It's the key is where it needs to be. And don't get me wrong, there's still slop. It's an old loader tractor. The sector gears are just as worn as the pinion, but we took out a lot of the slop that was in there. So that'll be, I guess, the best we can hope for on this one. I'm pretty happy with it. We can go ahead and put this thing back together. Well, that all went together nicely, and the play is even less now. That's like perfect. Very happy with that. And with leaving the gasket out of here, these things, I just wanted to make sure you could see that the sectors still move freely. That's good. So everything's all torqued up. Now I just have to put the lock plate and then the jam nut and flip one tab of it over. And that's the steering shaft done. Here's one to file under the category of pay attention to what you're doing, stupid. I had this thing all back together. Well, now I get to take it all apart. Well, not all apart, but apart. I'll show you. Our shifter pin here is destroyed and destined for failure. And maybe while I've got the thing apart, I'll weld up this slot and file it back. That shouldn't be rounded out like that. That'll help our shifter work a little bit better. My mistake. I should have been paying more attention. To get this out, the first thing we've got to get out is this shift button, and then we can work on the bottom side. Now I got to get these two clevis pins out and get the interlock rocker out of here. Now we just need to compress this spring a little bit and pull this little horseshoe clip off, and we'll be able to take the shifter handle out the top of the case. So here's what's left of our shifter pin. It's pushed in from this side. You can see the end of it there. It's pushed in from this side. It's got a serration around this end. So to get it out, we need to grind this down flat and start working on this. Sometimes they come out if you whack them good with a big punch. Sometimes you have to heat this ball up and then start working on it. We'll see how it goes today. So I've got it on the anvil sitting on this. It's kind of a countersunk hole, so the ball fits in there pretty good, and I can beat on it without marking up the ball, right? I've given it a few good whacks with a punch, and it's free. You can see it's just starting to come out. So we're just going to patiently keep working on it, and eventually we'll get the bugger out. Okay, now she's coming out. Now we've got the old pin out. I measured it. It's exactly 250 thou, a quarter inch, spot on. And it's 1.5 inches long. So I'm going to grab a piece of stock and make one, because I haven't got one handy. And we'll get it anchored in there. We'll be just fine. I checked it with a file. It's not even hardened. It's just mild steel. So we'll easily be able to make one of these. We'll put a little bit of a knurl on the end so it bites when we drive it in, and we'll be just fine. So I made a new pin up. we're going to go ahead. I'll put a little green Loctite on this end of it, and we'll take it over to the press and push it in. That looks a lot better. Oh, hello, man. What are you guys doing in here? Did it start raining or something? And then I just touched this side with my sanding block just to make sure there wasn't any sharp edges sticking out from the back side of it. Now we got to work on the case. I got the damage in the slot welded up. Now we just got to get down in there with grinders and stuff. And just get that cleaned out a little bit so it's opened up there, and we'll just clean it up so it looks nice and it'll work good. There we are, all fixed up now. I wish I would have noticed that before. That's my foolishness. It's a known wear part on these. On the earlier 9Ns with the aluminum transmission cover, the pin does a lot better. It eats from about here to here in the transmission cover, but the pin stays okay. But these ones that are steel on cast iron, everything takes a beating. Anyway, doesn't matter. All fixed up now. We can go ahead and get this thing back on. Wow, it works a lot better when the pin is good. That's great. Now we can go ahead and put the boot on. These things, sometimes they go on easy, sometimes they don't. So, and be aware that it's actually a different boot. 9Ns and 2Ns take one, 8Ns take the other one. And some places will try to sell you one that fits both. It doesn't. This is the right boot for a 9N or 2N. So, first trick is getting it over the knot. Oh, okay, we did that. Now, when you get it down here, I've used a little silicone grease. You just kind of twist and push there, and it should go right on. Perfect. Yep, good. That's that done. I've got a big pair of snap ring pliers, and I actually made a pair of jaws that you can reach in and kind of stretch the boot out and put it over, because some of them are a big problem. This was good though. Next thing we're going to work on is our drag links. The rear ends of them are good, thank goodness, because on these 9Ns or 2Ns, the rear end is the whole drag link, right? Like from here to the back is all one piece, and just the little tie rod end on the front screws in. Now, all four of them need boots. So the rear ones, we've got new boots. They're both good and tight. The front ones, one is pretty sloppy, so I'm just going to change them both. So we're going to go ahead now and get these things off of here. Look at this one's all bent. We'll take it over to the press and see if we can straighten it out some. Man, there is nothing on this thing that is not bent. I got her mostly straightened out. I got the bolt out of the clamp on the end of the tube here. Now sometimes these things will just come, and sometimes, like this time, they won't. So what we'll do is we'll get over on the anvil, and usually you just get them on an anvil and bang the sides of the tube, and that'll loosen them up. If not, we got our little friend here. I got it to move just a tiny little bit, so I put it upside down and put some oil in the cut here on the sleeve, and just started working it back and forth. And that oil is making its way around the threads, so we'll be able to unscrew this thing in a minute. And before we take this thing out, we'll take a measurement from the end of the tube to the center of the grease fitting here. And we've got 1 7/16. So that's the depth that we'll put the new one into. And that should get us pretty close. There, now we just screw our new one into the right depth. And once I got it in that far, I'll get this guy cleaned up. We'll knock that broken cotter pin out of it. This can be used again. We're not going to put the cotter pin in yet because, of course, we're not tightening it until we got this job all done and we set the front end. Here's our new seal for the rear end of the drag link. This piece here that's left over is this piece, and it kind of just pops over a little groove on the stem there. And then this ring pops over. There's like a step in the machined in this, and that pops over that. So we've got two things we've got to get engaged. But first we got to get the old stuff off. And these things are usually on there pretty good. But I grab them with a pair of vice grips and give them a twist, and that usually loosens them up. I found it was mostly easier to slice most of the way through it with the zip wheel. That made short work of it. You can see here, this is original. This is leather. The original seals on these things were leather. Wow, that's cool. So now to get our new one on, you can see there how it's going to go down. We'll put a little grease around the stem here, and then we'll use this little piece of pipe to seat it down over this. There we go. Now I'll flip it over and we'll replace the grease fitting. I don't think it's even there anymore. That's one. Now we'll have it go at the other side. I never noticed, it's hard to tell, but look at that. Bent. Man, the sector bent. Everything on this thing is bent. What would you call it? The pitman arm, I guess. How did they bend everything? Anyway, well, we'll get Mr. Heat here and we'll get that straightened out. And there's that one done. Now everything's nice and straight again. Wow. This poor thing won't know what hit it, eh? We'll tighten this stuff up and stake everything with the cotter pins once we've gotten everything finished and we do all our adjustments. But for now, that's good. Now we're going to turn our attention to the throttle lever, which is one of the goofy things about these tractors. On an 8N or anything else, you could take this apart, you know, and get it out of the tractor. But on the 9Ns and 2Ns, they put this lever on the bottom of the shaft and they stake it with a rivet. I'll never understand why they did that. Anyway, we're going to we got to grind the head off one side of this and drive it out so we can get this apart. I don't know where this even came from. Whatever it was in, the steering column would have had to have been smashed to get this out without taking it apart. Don't ask me. Anyway, we'll get that done, get this off. It looks like there's a little bend to straighten out in it, and then we'll get it cleaned up and get it in. There was actually a brass rivet holding that together. Pretty interesting. So anyway, we ended up drilling it out. It wouldn't come up, but it drilled out easily. Now, we got to get this. You can see here, there's a little spring seat. It's just stuck on there with rust. It'll pop right off. It just moves up into that smaller diameter part there where the double D flats are, and it comes right off. We'll get this thing straightened out. And then what we have to do, to hold the throttle position, it runs up and down this quadrant plate on the steering column. It's like serrated. And what happens over time, it wears away and it gets flat on the bottom there. So even though the spring's pulling it down, it can't dig in between. So what, or catch in between the serrations. So what we do is we build this up with weld and file it back round again so it works properly like it should. So we'll make sure we got the bend out of it and it works properly by sticking it in there and running it through its motion. That's good. So now what we'll do is we'll get that welded up and dress it back down. Well, there we go. Some ugly welding. That's my calling card. But good enough for what we're doing. So I'm going to get busy with the file and get that back down so it's round again or close to round, and we'll see how it looks. That worked out perfectly. And you can see now it works. It grabs the serrations. Good. Now, we're getting this ready to go back together. And rather than putting a rivet through it like it had before, we're going to drill it and tap it for number 10 by 24. We're going to use this socket head screw. So we'll put a little bit of a counter bore in here for it to go into. So what we have to do, first we've got to go through the whole works with a number 25 drill. There we go. I got that on there. It's nice and tight. It's not jiggling or wiggling around. I found a different screw I'd rather use in there. It's a little bit longer. It sticks through the other side and lets me put a nut on the back just to jam it to make sure it's not going to, you know, rattle out or something while the machine's running. I got the dash panel installed. And while I was at it, the battery tray goes on at the same time because it shares bolts on the front here. And ours, if you remember, was a cobbled up, welded up, rotted out mess. So I found a really, really nice one in the barn. So we put that on while we were at it. Now I'm going to go ahead and get all this throttle stuff back in. So you can see here this together. The spring is in. The little seat is there. We've got the little lever on the bottom. And now we've put the detent plate in. And as we tighten up the bolts, you can see it's going to pull that up and put tension on the spring under there. And then this thing should work quite nicely. If I ever get this bolt tightened up. Let's see. Oh yeah. That's how it's supposed to work. Good. It's a lot easier when you're sitting behind it. You can pull on it. Working it from the side here is a little problematic. Okay, so now what we can do is we can put the torque shaft in and get our linkage all finished off. And that'll be the throttle all done. Now we're going to replace this little guy. You can see here the old one, what happens to it. The spring over time that holds it together gets weak and they'll start popping off. And this is a really important one because it's here right at the bottom of the dash. And it connects your throttle actual lever there to the governor linkage. And with this thing having a loader and everything on it, if this was to start giving trouble, it's a pain in the neck to get at. So we're just going to go ahead and put a new one on it, and hopefully it'll last a long time. So there's that little guy put in. We've got the actual governor link connected at the front, a new compensating spring installed. This just kind of helps. My understanding of the compensating spring is it just helps keep a little load to balance. It takes up the play and everything so that you don't end up with a fluttery speed, you know. Like I said, that's my understanding of it. And while we were at it, we put a choke rod on it. This is one that I found in my junk. The choke rod, there was only about that much of it, and the rest of it was made out of a coat hanger. Oh, yeah. They got, like I said, they got to do what they got to do to keep these things running. But we had a proper original one, so we put that on. And I guess that's it. So you can see here now, we got all this stuff sorted out. The dash, the steering box, the throttle linkage. We're all set. So that'll do it for this one. As usual, we got a little more involved than we'd anticipated, but that seems to be the theme with this old beast. It had a lot of hours on it, I guess, and it was used hard, right? Anyway, it's all sorted out now. We can carry on. In the next video, we're going to get the electrical done and hopefully get this thing back up and running. I'm going to go now, I guess. I'd like to thank you for tuning into the Claremont Classic Garage. Hope you'll come back and see us again. And until then, I'm Kevin saying so long for now.